Hi everyone, thanks so much for everybody who has subscribed to my channel. I'm very grateful. If you haven't subscribed, please do so now so you'll be notified when my videos come up. Today I want to speak about the fallout from Storm Elwyn. Absolutely disgraceful that happened over 14 days ago, and yet we still have 13,000 to 14,000 homes in Ireland still without power. Now the head of the ESB, Paddy Hayes, who is on a salary of over €318,000 per year, has said that the costs of Storm Elwyn will now be put back on people. So here we go, higher bills because of Storm Elwyn. Not to mention, this has come on the back of the second highest electricity prices across the European Union. Absolutely astronomical electricity prices people are paying. And not to mention the profits made by ESB. And of course, who owns ESB? Yes, the people, but we won't mention that because this is all about profits for these companies and the oligarchs as well, who are involved in these companies, and people like Paddy Hayes, who is the highly paid Chief Executive Officer of ESB. But nothing to see here, just more prices for people who are hard pressed in Ireland. Now, he said he will take stock of what has taken place in the last number of days, but we've seen the horrific events of people left without electricity and power. Most recently, a man in Donegal passed away because he wasn't able to get access to his medical equipment. Absolutely horrific. We've seen and heard so many stories of people all around the country who are left without basic medicinal needs and aids that they require to get by day to day. Now, this is the fallout of this storm. But again, the ESB have come out and said that price increases will be pushed on people. And they also said that compensation does not arise here for people in terms of storm damage, that the people have access to a humanitarian assistance fund set up by the government. Now, this fund a lot of people cannot contact as well. So many people live week to week and are struggling to get by on fixed incomes, and to provide accommodation for themselves in hotels aren't quite around the corner like we have here in Dublin. They could be up to 40 or 50 or 60 miles away to get accommodation. But of course, the needs of Irish citizens don't really matter with this government, who are more interested in bowing down to their masters in Brussels and serving the interests of the immigration chaos, for instance, rather than serving the interests of ordinary people here in Ireland. Now, Paddy Hayes spoke about working towards the resilience of the network and sitting down with stakeholders, for instance, around forestry. Now, we've seen the decimation of forestries around Ireland for years and years, but in particular, it's been the move towards the industrialisation and corporatisation of our forestries, which has been facilitated through Quilcha and selling off so much of our forestry and lands to vulture funds who use this non-native species such as Sitka spruce, all for profit. But again, they tore down so many power lines, but nothing to see here, and no compensation package being looked for off those vulture funds. Of course, we'll push the prices back on ordinary people. Now, they've said they spent over €950 million over the last 4 years on their network. Now, I don't know where they've spent it. I'm sure they've spent it on nefarious means, perhaps. Maybe junkets and nice pay rises for the higher echelons of ESB. Now, what's also interesting with this is that the government's response to it, because the government didn't sit down and come back when they could have. They went on a longer 2-week holiday. They're more interested now talking about action plans and reviews and lessons to learn, how we can build resilience in the network. This is more of the same nonsense that we've come to expect from the Irish government, rather than dealing with the crises here on our own doorstep when it affects Irish citizens. When it affects somebody else, they're more than welcome and willing to put their money out when they can profit their rich friends. But when it comes to the needs of ordinary people, they are left last in the queue. Now, Ireland, as I said, has the second highest electricity prices across the European Union, according to Eurostat, 30% above the European average, which means that people pay over €355 more than most people in Europe. And 1 in 8 people are in energy arrears, which is about €220 to €230 million. And not to mention 30% of people who are in energy poverty. That is when you spend over 10% of your disposable income on energy. And we also seen the impacts of deaths from fuel poverty across Europe and here in Ireland. Up to 3,000 people die every year because of fuel poverty. Now, this is the reality of Ireland. But of course, the media and politicians won't talk about this. They'll just discuss about putting more prices on ordinary people who are already struggling with the cost of living disaster. So we'll push on more prices in terms of the carbon taxes, the public service levy, which is an obligation forced on people, which still has to be paid, no compensation packages for ordinary people. And of course, this is putting extra pressure on the grid with the increase in population and the mass use of the international companies with data centres. Now, of course, this is part of the strategy of the Irish political establishment, looking after the big corporations, looking after the interests of the very rich, the data centres, the multinationals, rather than the interests of ordinary people and providing basic energy as a need. And this is Ireland, which is very rich with resources, but we've sold off so many of our resources. Look at the Corrib gas field, look at the south coast of Ireland around Kinsale, and many more regions as well, where it's all about privatisation, making profit. And remember, before privatisation or liberalisation of the market, we had the cheapest prices in Europe. But nothing to see here, just more prices on ordinary people, and who will pay for it? Again, ordinary people, where rather than suffering, who have been left without, who have been struggling, who today, 2 weeks on, are still suffering. This shows you how Ireland works. Politicians pay lip service to the needs of our citizens. Thanks for the support of my videos, and please subscribe so you'll be updated when my videos come up. So take care. See you all soon. Slán.